rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Occasionally, you might hear a little bit of noise in the background. That is our local Navy boys doing their thing in the skies above us. And the sound is a welcome sound. I just want you to know. I mean, it can be frustrating for some, I know, but for me, that is definitely a welcome sound because that is the sound of freedom and the protectors of that freedom doing their jobs. So there you go. All right, here we go. Another flag. Gee, I wonder why. Well, it could be because it's American Pride Month. I encourage you to, on all your socials, put down American Pride Month and post a picture of a U.S. flag or U.S. flag, replicas, likenesses, things of that nature. I put mine up. I've been putting them up every day, and I'm going to keep putting them up every day. Well, I mean, as long as I can get to it. To be honest, sometimes you get into the way, but definitely United States, this is American Pride Month. The United States Army has their birthday on June 14th, as well as Flag Day, which same day. But that is what it is. All right, folks, let's go ahead and get things kicked off. Oh, good, she's here. Tonight, we have on deck for the Pledge of Allegiance our very own U.S. Abby Girl. That's right, U.S. Abby Girl is on deck for the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mind, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one like me, place your hand over your heart, and join along with U.S. Abby Girl in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, of course, we thank you, U.S. Abby Girl, for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself performing the pledge, reciting the pledge in your style. Then take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, and send it off to fans. Well, attach it to an email first, and then send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will get you into the rotation as soon as I possibly can. All right, tonight's headline sponsor is the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, and that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following three key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.americanperspective.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.americanperspective.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's IOTC.AmericanPerspective.online. Or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to Constitution.AmericanPerspective.online. Check this out. Got 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around pages that are water and tear resistant. And look at that, folks. No cheap glue here. That is an actual stitched binding. I know we haven't seen this in a very long time, but this is actual stitched binding. Got a 100-year warranty against materials and workmanship defects, such that if something does go wrong, you send it back to the manufacturer and they will either fix it or replace it for free. Bonnie says that it's got sexy rounded corners. And of course, we know that it is buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved. My youngest whiskey warrior has confirmed that the information contained within will help you to achieve your civics badge in Scouts. It will also help you pass that civics test. Go to constitution.americanperspective.online and get yours today. Don't forget to check out the rest of the Institute on the Constitution's offerings, as they are a fantastic affiliate, and I appreciate them for allowing me to be an affiliate of theirs. All right. Okay. So, to start tonight off, there was a interview that CBS was doing, and yeah, I guess, the leftist mainstream media, just for whatever reason, they like to try and hide things when they don't fit the specific narratives that they're working for. For an example, I think one of the news outlets described the Egyptian illegal alien, anti-Semitic rant and everything, described him as a white man. Well, I mean, yes, his skin was white. If you look at the videos, you'll understand what I mean. But it just seems, they do this all the time. Whenever something like this happens, they want to try and avoid the things that make their narrative break under pressure. And as you all know, if you're telling the truth, you don't mind being questioned. If you're telling a lie, yeah, you're not so happy when you're being questioned. So, anyway, CBS, one of their hosts, and they were talking about the top story on CBS Evening News, and they essentially were, obviously talking back and forth, and one of their journalists actually said a little bit of an interesting sort of quiet thing out loud. And the three people that are involved, well, the two in particular are John Dickerson and, let's see, what is his name? And Nancy Cordes and Maurice Dubois. And they're talking to Cordes. No, they're talking to John Dickerson, I think. Or maybe they're talking to Cordes. I don't know. Anyway, the point is, I'm not sure which direction this kind of goes in terms of who's standing in the camera at the White House, but the question was asked by John Dickerson, Nancy, what would have happened to the man's name? Not going to put it down there, but the man's name, under Trump's policies. And Nancy Cordes says, well, and this is a quote, well, the Trump administration, John, has raised the asylum threshold, so he could still enter the country on a tourist visa today, but he might not be allowed to even begin the asylum process. The Biden administration also granted him a temporary 2-year work permit, so he was able to earn a living in the U.S. while he waited for his asylum claim to be processed. And then she drops the bomb. And it's unlikely under Trump's immigration policies that he would have been granted that work permit. Yeah. So in other words, the Biden administration kind of allowed this to happen. I mean, we all know that it was. I mean, the guy came in during the Biden administration, and the fact that he is, he was hanging out, he overstayed his visa, and then he decided, and by the way, there's some reports, not confirmed, but some reports that this guy was planning this for about a year. Okay. So, yeah. You kind of got to wonder whenever this type of stuff happens, like how many more of these are we going to go through? How many more are we going to find here? Anyway, so CBS, let's just say that they had to admit something that they probably didn't want to. Well, speaking of the man and the situation, apparently his family is now set to be deported. So the wife and all 5 children of this gentleman, who is a terror suspect, have all been arrested by ICE and HSI and are now in federal custody, according to multiple senior DHS sources telling Fox News. Bill Malusian posted on X on Tuesday afternoon and said, "I'm being told the family is being processed for expedited removal, which allows rapid deportation without a hearing before an immigration court judge." Now, wait a minute. Hold up. I thought that, due process, at least under the leftist thought process, is that they couldn't get deported without a due process, meaning a immigration hearing. But now you're telling me that there is a actual law that allows us to deport them faster? Hi, that's kind of interesting. Now, the perpetrator, of course, says that he has no regrets, and he told law enforcement that he would definitely take those same actions again. The investigation so far has also uncovered that this individual apparently tried to buy a firearm as well when he was in this planning. But he decided and opted for the Molotov cocktails because of the fact that he figured out that his illegal status prevented the purchase of a firearm. Excuse me. So, yeah, there you go. Yeah. So anyway, there you go. You got a couple of tidbits off of that one for sure. All right. Well, not that Jake Tapper is really any friend of ours, and let's admit that we already knew this, but it's kind of nice to have like this individual sort of confirm. And I'm not talking about just Jake Tapper. I mean anybody, really, anybody within the whole, blob that is considered to be the deep state propagandist organization that wraps itself around the Democrat leftist lunatics and tries to cover for them. Well, Jake Tapper was on a recent interview. He was on a podcast called The Remnant Podcast with Jonah Goldberg. And they were kind of talking back and forth, and Goldberg argued that the press would actually have been more aggressive to cover Biden's mental decline if Biden was a Republican, or potentially if President Trump had represented a more establishment brand of conservatism. Now, people are like, "Oh, what do you mean established brand of conservatism?" Yeah, think more like Mitch McConnell, Mitt Romney, something like that. Okay. a little bit more of the rhino species than necessarily a conservative, an actual MAGA conservative kind of scenario. And so Goldberg, put that out, and he he basically, by saying the one group of people who believe Biden's existential threat to democracy stuff about Trump was a big chunk of the DC press corps. And Tapper responded back and says, I don't disagree with your general premise, and I think it's unfortunate that a lot of the press criticism and journalism and most known journalism professors out there have been saying since the Bush years that it is the responsibility of journalists to basically take up the Democrat cause, meaning capital D, not small d, the Democrat Party cause. And he says, and I think that's unfortunate. I don't doubt that there were a lot of people who viewed the world that way. So, I mean, pretty much we already knew this, but this is coming from an essentially sort of an insider. And he is basically admitting to the fact that what we've all known, okay, is that the idea of journalism in some of these higher education institutions, such as, Harvard, that they are basically being indoctrinated to pick up the Democrat Party cause. Yeah. They're being indoctrinated and told by their professors, you need to pick up the Democrat Party cause. Really? And you wonder why the mainstream media is, and think about the same thing. I mean, it's not just journalism. It's a lot of other areas within academia that are all the same way. And we talked about this on the program not too long ago. Okay. That they all have been, everything outside of the science, technology, engineering, and math studies, those are still relatively neutral to conservative. But any other field of study has been demonstrated to show a liberal bias. And so, yeah. Basically, it's just folks, I mean, seriously, you send your kids off to universities, many of the universities, not all, because there are some good ones. There are some good ones out there, but you send them off to more of the mainstream universities, and you're going to end up slapping them in the face with essentially a Marxist, leftist, communist, socialist style ideology. And that's what's going to happen is they are going to be spoon-fed or in some cases force-fed that ideology. And you will see the ramifications of it. And see, this is part of the problem. This is part of the reason why the universities are at such a low right now, and that the American public really does actually and has picked up on all of this and been like, hey, you know what? I showed you the whole thing. Populism or popular opinion basically says that 45% of the voting populace that answered the polls said that, yeah, universities have a left-leaning slant. And you wonder why. So Tapper also noted that he agreed with Goldberg's premise about the whole thing with the journalists and the leftists. And he also believes that the issue actually goes beyond partisanship, that it's pointing to a culture of groupthink and what? Professional intimidation that shaped newsroom behavior during Biden's presidency. He's like, I think it's probably more complicated than partisanship. More complicated than partisanship. That indicates some sort of a potential push or potential coordinated I hesitate to say evil, but it's sort of, a planned, let's put it that way, a planned push. So, interesting. Okay. Then he also goes on and says, if this had been, Joe Biden versus Mitt Romney, maybe the press corps would have been tougher, meaning on Biden. But he says, I also think the press corps was pretty unfair to Mitt Romney in 2012. So I don't know if the premise is necessarily correct. He says it's all very complicated. Actually, it's not that complicated. It boils down to one thing and one thing only, which is that you have a concerted effort by a group, a large group of individuals who are basically telling everybody that they have to toe the Democrat Party line. And they're being force-fed this when their minds are supposed to be absorbing information and absorbing the skill set to be able to think critically, and they're not being taught that. They're being taught to basically, whatever the Democrat Party agrees with, that's what you're going to go for. And this is part of the reason why we see the Star Trek-like Borg hive mind in the Democrat Party of today. You want to talk about it being a cult? MAGA's not a cult. MAGA is a group of individuals who have all come to the same realization that our country is disappearing quickly and that we all need to get on the bandwagon, but we are far from being a cult. And as far as that goes, the left is the perfect example of the cult mind and the cult behavior. All you have to do is scan social media on any given point in the day, and you can find multiple accounts across any social media that you pick. You can find multiple accounts, and they will all be repeating the exact same drum line. That's it. Yeah, that is cult-ish behavior. All right. Let me take a quick break before I jump into the next item. If it'll come up. There we go. All right, this sponsorship is from Rumble, and that is incredibly important to the survival of the company. When Rumble first started in 2013, they built the platform for the small creator like myself. They didn't censor or have biases, unlike journalism. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought the platforms, meaning those other guys, would censor political conversation or censor opinions on COVID, but they went ahead and did it. Facebook even went and admitted that they fell to pressure from the Biden-Harris administration. Rumble has not and did not. They have held the line. They are attacked daily for giving us a voice, to talk to you, to get our messages out. They are attacked in corporate media. They are attacked by governments like France. They are attacked from brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. Corporate America is fighting to remove speech. Rumble is fighting to keep it. Rumble won't survive with brand advertisers. They don't get very much brand advertising. Watching our show on Rumble is the most that they can ask of you. But if you really believe in this fight, and if you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium. Join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with the promo code STUDIO. That's STUDIO when you purchase an annual subscription. Go to rumble.com/premium and use promo code STUDIO to get that $10 off when you purchase an annual subscription. Once again, go to rumble.com/ that's your question mark key, /premium to use promo code STUDIO to get that $10 off when you purchase an annual subscription. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now is the time to join Rumble Premium. But if you don't have the means, that's okay. That's okay too. We're just happy if you watch us on Rumble. All right. So, the Department of Justice has announced that they are launching an investigation into the Biden pardons. Now, this is different slightly from use of the auto pen. It does include the auto pen, but this is specific to his final days. Because as we know, we're looking, I mean, you could see the deterioration. If you were to take Joe Biden from when he first came into office in 2021 and compared him to Joe Biden as he was leaving office in 2024, you would see a complete difference in the man. And so the Department of Justice has decided that they're going to take a look at the idea of his pardons. In specificity, the pardons that had to deal with his family. So roughly 48 hours before Donald Trump was sworn in as president, for the second time, Joe went ahead and issued a bunch of preemptive pardons on a full and unconditional basis for his family members, including James Biden, Sarah Biden, Valerie Biden Owens, John T. Owens, and Frances Biden, and backdated them to 2014. He did the same for Hunter Biden just the month previously. Well, then he continued to commute the sentences of 37 of 40 prisoners that were on federal death row. And so the idea here is that the sweeping series of pardons and commutations were definitely concerning, especially now that we know that he wasn't quite all there for his faculties. So they are launching an investigation to try and figure out whether or not somebody may have used the auto pen to issue the pardons instead of him. Because remember what I told you, for the auto pen to be quote unquote legal, the individual whose signature the auto pen is creating needs to be either present or at least, at the very least, be very knowledgeable on what the auto pen is actually signing. Now, all of that is under question. Now, here's the problem. And I'm just basically, I'm gonna put this out there because I think people need to understand and be ready for this, that should this even come to trial, constitutionally speaking, there isn't much that the president's pardon power is limited by. In fact, when the presidential pardon power was created in the original text of the Constitution, they hadn't even considered the thought of the 25th Amendment at the time. Now, that being said, they also couldn't have necessarily figured out that there would be like an auto pen signing all of this, all right? However, I don't know how far this is going to gain any kind of traction within the courts. I honestly, I don't know how far, how much traction this is really going to gain. And the reason why I say that is mostly just because of the fact that in the past, the Supreme Court has been hesitant, at the very least, to involve itself into matters of the executive branch. And this, the pardon power, happens to be one of them, because there have been some questions as to whether or not somebody can just get pardoned, even if we don't know whether or not they actually committed a crime. And so far, the Supreme Court, the only thing the Supreme Court has actually stated is that, no, you cannot preemptively pardon, meaning pardon somebody for a crime that is going to be committed. So, yeah. So anyway, the whole point and parcel with all of this is that, I don't know, it's kind of, it all depends on how the question is going to be framed. And the reason being is because, the presidential pardon, honestly, has even been used. Like, for an example, there wasn't any real evidence that was presented in Richard Nixon's case with the idea that he, they didn't even know for sure whether he was involved in Watergate anyway. But yet, at the time, Gerald Ford, who was the president, went ahead and gave him a blanket pardon for crimes that he may or may not have committed during that time, which again kind of belies, and the Supreme Court upheld it, and that kind of belies the idea that the presidential pardon is fairly wide. So anyway, it's kind of questionable. We'll just have to see what happens, because even when you look in the Constitution, or you even look up, the Federalist 74, the Federalist Papers number 74 does talk about it, and the only limits that are there is basically except in cases of impeachment, meaning that he can't pardon himself for an impeachment thing. Other than that, there really isn't a lot here that talks about it. In fact, the argument that was being made by Alexander Hamilton at the time is that, the whole point of the pardon is to be able to have essentially a check on a potential rogue court. So, for an example, let's just say Donald Trump got brought up on federal charges for something, which is part of the reason why they went to the state in New York and came up with that bull hockey, thing that he turned into 34 convictions. But anyway, the point is that the presidential pardon has a pretty broad spectrum based on what we know. And so this is where there isn't a lot of limitations here for this. So I don't know how willing the Supreme Court would be in terms of taking it up. And let's face it, it would have to go through a DC court system anyway. It would have to go through the DC court system anyway, because that's where the incident occurred. And so we all know that the DC court system is not friendly at all to any kind of conservative movement. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll just have to see. And also, too, just for another little tidbit in terms of the next big thing coming down the pike, Dan Bongino did come out and make a statement that basically said that they are closing in on the January 6th bomber, the bomber that placed the bombs at the DNC and the RNC, or close to the RNC. We'll still have to see where that goes, because, again, the only thing I really want to know, I mean, who said it? Okay, that would be great. But let's just put it out in the open. I mean, Dan, you've got the evidence. Why can't you just say, hey, it's a fake bomb? It always has been. Just throw it out there. Not, we have this video and it sort of looks like it. You've got the evidence. You've got the bomb. Just say flat out, it's a bomb. It was a bomb. It was a dud. There was nothing to it. And that at least can confirm what everybody is thinking, is that it was fake, that it was designed to be fake. But I guess that would be letting the cat out of the bag a little bit early, I suppose. Anyway. All right. So we have another little tidbit. Now, this goes back a little ways. So there's a declassified memo that was put out. It was an FBI memorandum, and has raised some concerns about a former Fusion GPS contractor and her sworn testimony to Congress. So it was released on Wednesday by Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley, and it details the FBI's internal findings on Nellie Orr, who is actually married to former Justice Department official Bruce Orr. And Grassley alleges that there was some lying to Congress during her testimony. Now, of course, this is going back to the whole Russiagate thing. I mean, this is Trump 1. They're still trying to litigate this. This is why I say the wheels of justice turn very slowly. Excuse me. But there is some question in terms of her testimony and whether or not it's actually, whether or not she actually lied. Not necessarily. I don't think I would necessarily say that anyone is shocked here, but let's just take a look here at this highlighted section. If I can zoom in far enough here. It looks like I can't, unfortunately. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I can. Hold on. Let's go like this. Oh, is that? Okay. So it's not going to zoom in, unfortunately. That sucks. Is that? Oh, wait a minute. Maybe it will. Hold on. Let me open it here. Switch over to this. There we go. Now it's nice and big. All right. And let me back off on that. So, here we have, this is part of the documents, the declassified document from the FBI, and it says initial investigation of the allegations contained in the criminal referral established the fact that Nellie Orr provided demonstrably false information in two aspects of her testimony, and that she may have provided false testimony in other regards. Whether this false testimony might lead to a viable 1001 charge is for the DOJ's public integrity section to determine. So the FBI at the time, who were investigating this entire thing, came up with the idea that, she was, this is the Washington field office squad that did this. They just basically were alleging that Nellie Orr violated Title 18 USC Section 1001, which is what they're referring to. So, yeah. Now, let's be honest. There's probably a statute of limitations, I would imagine, on this. So, who knows if it would even go anywhere. But it does provide further evidence and proof, realistically, of the fact that she is essentially that she lied, it was made up, and, so on and so forth. So the leftists and Adam Schiff needs to frickin' stop with his whole idea of Russia, Russia, Russia. Yeah, so we'll just have to see about that. Again, the wheels of justice turn. They do turn slowly. It's unfortunate that they do, but they do. All right, well, last night, I was telling you about the $20 million that the Dems spent to try and figure out why they were losing men. Well, further motions in the Democrat Party, because let's face it, when your popularity is down below 20% and you're supposed to be the second alternative political party in this country, you're probably not going to get a lot of voters if people don't trust you. And that is essentially what a lot of the newest polls that are coming out, even from places like CNN and Siena Polling, which are notoriously left-leaning. But I digress from this to basically say that the Dems are starting to try and figure out why they're at 19% and what the hell happened. Because let's face it, whether they agree or admit to it or not, they got their butts kicked in 2024. And they're trying to figure out what the hell happened, because they thought that they had the shoe in with, prancing Tim Walz, stolen valor, Tim Walz, lying Tim Walz, and of course the queen of the word salad, Kamala Harris. But they're now figuring out, well, we obviously did something wrong, because they are now looking to get a new think tank. And they're trying to figure out how they're going to get away from woke identity politics. Now, I played that interview for you with, she just tried to take, she's just announced that she wants to be the ranking member on the House Oversight Committee, and I can't think of her name. But anyway, Jasmine Crockett, there it is, Jasmine Crockett. So Jasmine Crockett, of course, kind of mentioned that, hey, we need to change what we're doing. And she was talking about this in an interview. I played the video for you just a couple episodes ago. And they're trying to figure out how they can move away from this deep leftist narrative of everything that they've got going on. And so some of these Democrats, especially the donors, are looking to get away from this. So during a private meeting with several Democratic donors, this is in the Daily Caller, by the way, with several Democratic donors and leaders in April, Adam Gentleson, that's Gentleson, who had previously served as chief of staff to Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman and top aide to former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, pitched an idea to establish a new think tank called Searchlight. And this, of course, is according to Politico, which we know is the left-leaning playbook, puts out the political playbook, which tells you exactly what the Democrats are thinking. So if you want to know what the Democrats are thinking, all you got to do, read the political playbook. You'll know. Now, this particular think tank's goal would be to encourage the Democrat Party to refocus on positions that are viewed as more widely popular among Americans ahead of the 2028 presidential election, according to 5 anonymous sources that Politico says they have. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the way that they would go about trying to do this. For an example, positions that are viewed more widely popular among Americans. Illegal immigration is bad. We should get rid of illegal aliens. We need to get them out. Okay. A populist position among Americans. Men are men, women are women, and men do not need to be in women's sports. Yeah, I don't know how that's going to fly with the Democrat Party. All right, let's see. What's the next thing? Oh, we want less taxes. Okay. We want to cut spending. Yeah. Even though, let's be honest, the Republicans are also doing the spending, hence the big, beautiful bill fight here, which I'm probably going to talk about here in just a few minutes. You could sit here and go through any number of these things, and any number of these middle of the road positions, and you would probably find that, I don't see how that's going to line up with the Democrat Party of today. Now, if you'd asked me about the Democrat Party of, say, Obama or before Obama, absolutely it probably would have. But the leftist, Marxist, socialist, so on and so forth, they have taken control of that party because they feel like they are in a position to essentially finish the destruction of this country, and especially the Constitution of the United States, which is what they hate because it has everything antithetical to what they believe in within it. So anyway, the point is that the Democrat Party is basically attempting to try and reconnect with voters ahead of the 2028 election because they can't quite figure out, hey, we were the party of the working man, the unions, so on and so forth, the middle class and lower class of America. Well, it turns out the middle class and the lower class of America actually believe in American values, Democrats. So, and Trump was very effective in being able to usurp that coalition and bring many of them over to the Republican Party and expose the Democrat left as the evil, again, Marxist, socialist, etc., that they are. So, anyway, one anonymous source told Politico that voters do not break down among the perceived ideological lines that a lot of Democrats are drawn into by the interest groups. He's like, the machinations of the party try to force people into boxes. So that's their problem. Again, the party of unity is actually the party of divisiveness. Like, oh, you have, your skin color isn't white, so you go into the POC box. And because you go into the POC box, that means you must hate whites, or you hate conservatism, or you hate family, or whatever. Yeah, no, that stuff doesn't work. It doesn't work anymore. And they're trying to figure this out. They're trying to understand how they can actually reach out and get back to people. I'm going to tell you, if you're within the sound of my voice and you've actually even listened to this broadcast, watch the videos, even at a later date, do not, under any circumstances, believe a word that these people say. There's a reason why they like illegal immigration. There's a reason why they hate voter ID. There's a reason why, because they are looking to replace the values that the American people have stood on for close to 250 years, and are looking to extend their power and capability in order to make sure that the America that we know and love turns into a totalitarian hellscape. That's what they're after. Damn it, Coco, insert name here. It just made me hungry. Anyway. All right. So something happened over the weekend that is a yes, Bonnie, they are. That actually kind of surprised, I think, just about everybody. So, Ukraine, and keep in mind this Ukraine-Russia thing, I know that Donald Trump said he could end it in 24 hours and it's not really going anywhere. Okay, fine. Whatever. The man made a promise. He said that he could do it, and he's not doing it because both of these parties do not want this war to end, because they each want basically a large piece of the pie, which is essentially the country of Ukraine. But beyond that, Ukraine pulled off a massive drone strike inside of Russia this past weekend. It was called Operation Spider's Web, and it reportedly damaged 41 Russian military aircraft, including several Soviet-era strategic nuclear bombers. Now, I got to tell you, and this is in the Daily Wire, but I got to tell you, this is pretty masterful. I mean, you thought that this is some footage that I'm showing right here of a drone hitting one of the bombers. But here's one of the things that is basically sort of amazing to me, is the fact that just like the beeper strike and the radio strike that Israel did and so on and so forth, they did this and nobody even knew what was going on, realistically. They got their people out, who essentially were planting this. Now, this involved essentially 117 what they call first-person view drones, meaning that somebody had to be flying them. They were smuggled into Russian territory by Ukrainian operatives and positioned near several key military installations across Russia. 5 air bases in 5 separate specific areas spread across 5 different time zones. The drones were positioned under false roofs of what they called portable sheds. They were transported via truck and parked just outside the perimeter of the target bases before they were launched all simultaneously on Sunday. So here is an image of where they struck. Now, if you look at this, they struck everywhere. I mean, pretty much just about everywhere. And according to Vladimir Zelensky, the operation was planned over the course of a year and a half. So in a post on Telegram, Zelensky praised the absolute brilliant outcome of Ukraine's longest range operation, adding that Ukraine is defending itself, and rightly so. We are doing everything to make Russia feel the need to end this war. Now, unfortunately, while several of these bases were successful, there unfortunately was a Ukrainka air base in Amur was targeted. That's the one that's the closest to my head here, right over here, right there. And they were targeted, but unfortunately they were unscathed because the truck that was carrying them blew up. So, yeah. Anyway. Now, this obviously is a further escalation. I mean, let's face it. Russia, Putin doesn't want to come to the table. He just doesn't. He just flat out does not want to come to the table. And so, Zelensky, who, by the way, after that disastrous meeting in the White House, has pretty much acquiesced to anything that Trump has told him and had him do, for the most part, other than this. I mean, I got to admit, this kind of shows like Zelensky has a little bit of balls. Now, I don't know if he planned it or if his generals planned it, but somebody got pretty clever with this entire thing. But that being said, now we have a bit of a interesting conundrum, because Russia's strategic bombing fleet is a major piece of their what they call their nuclear triad. And it's alongside things like nuclear submarines, ground-based intercontinental ballistic missiles, so on and so forth. Now, Russia's aerial capabilities, according to the report, were significantly degraded due to interrupted supply chains, loss of airframes during the war. And according to a report by Dagans, in 2022 and 2023, only a few dozen new aircraft were actually delivered to the Russian military. And so almost half of Russia's 1,200 military aircraft were nearing the end of their service lives anyway. And many Soviet-era designs, including the Tu-95s and the Tu-22M3s, no longer have active production lines and are effectively irreplaceable. So, yeah. This is kind of an interesting new twist to the war. All right. One last thing about the big, beautiful bill. Now, obviously, it's passed the House. Senate is still arguing over it. And one big opponent of the big, beautiful bill comes in the way of Kentucky Republican Rand Paul. Now, Rand Paul has basically one major issue. And I got to admit, this one major issue is something that I've been kind of I'm not happy about with the big, beautiful bill, which is essentially that the big, beautiful bill raises the debt ceiling by another $4.5 trillion. Now, our national debt is approaching $37 trillion. That is unprecedented. And yes, it does need to be cut back. I'm not entirely sure that the big, beautiful bill has enough cutting within it to basically offset the debt ceiling being raised by that much. And also keep in mind, too, that regardless of what, and this goes for all politicians, it doesn't matter whether it's Trump, whether it's Biden, it doesn't make any difference, or any other Republican or Democrat. Just like any other program that is supposed to just be temporary, okay? Basically, what's happening here is they're going to raise the debt ceiling, they won't bring it back, and that's pretty much it. So it's sort of, in a way, it's kind of like Pandora's box with a lot of these things. Once you open it, you can't put it back. And again, that's one of my biggest challenges here for all of this is we are on a spending spree. We have got to cut back and slow down spending. Now, all of that being said, does it look great that like Medicaid and Medicare are getting cuts because of people that are, gaming the system, fraud, waste, abuse, illegals being on it? Yes, that is cool. By cool, I mean that is good. But at the same time, though, I personally don't think things go far enough. Because as I've said on this program, healthcare is not a constitutionally mandated responsibility of the federal government in accordance with Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution. Therefore, the 10th Amendment applies. To me, there should be a lot more cutting. And if we did all those cuttings, we wouldn't need to raise the debt ceiling another $4.5 trillion. So, yeah. Anyway, there must be a way to, and I don't have any like brilliant or ingenious ideas. Okay. But there has to be a way that we can take out a lot of the waste, fraud, and abuse. And oh, by the way, Doge cuts haven't even really been talked about here. I mean, they're supposedly going to be implemented and put into law, but I'm not entirely sure that all of this is going to really necessarily happen. Now, all of that being said, don't get me wrong. Do I think the big, beautiful bill needs to be passed? Absolutely. There are good things in the big, beautiful bill, like codifying the Trump, they call them the Trump tax cuts, but it's the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, codifying those, making those permanent, taking out tax on tips, taking out tax on some other stuff, making it so that the people who are on Medicaid actually have to go back to, by the way, that's Clinton era requirements that you have to prove that you're at least trying to get a job. Now, keep in mind, I think it might be a little low. I mean, they're asking for 20 hours, I think, a month or whatever. Even volunteer work counts. But outside of that, there's plenty in this one big, beautiful bill that actually is both good and also bad. I would love to see something that is all good. I know for a fact we're not going to get it. So anyway, but Rand Paul, I will have to say, I mean, I do agree with him. I'm not all that pleased about the increase of the debt ceiling. Now, Rand Paul has said that that as far as many of the other provisions, he's fine with them. But he's just, again, it's the raising of the debt ceiling that seems to be his biggest thing. Now, he also did say, though, that he is open to negotiations. So, I mean, at least he's saying that much. But we'll just have to see what the Senate actually comes out. But I will say this. That means there's an indication that the Senate bill is not going to be the same as the House bill, which means that if the Senate passes whatever they pass, and it doesn't match up with the House, it's got to go back to the House, get re-voted on by the House, and then it can be sent to the president for his signature. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, okay, please head over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time I go live. Also, too, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, or if you're really, thumbs down, across all of my platforms, whether it's YouTube, X, Facebook, and of course the aforementioned Rumble. If you have a pet of the week, you need to get it in for tomorrow. Otherwise, I mean, I'm going to have a bunch of pictures for tomorrow anyway. Tomorrow's a long program, so it's easier for me to do. All right, folks, that is it. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening. And, oh, wait. No, I didn't forget BAM. I didn't forget. I'm going to get them on Wednesday, I promise. All right. Have a great evening, and we will see you tomorrow. Good night, everyone.